Hey guys, welcome back to Living on the Verge, where it's just real life around here, the fun parts, the messy parts, and what they're trying to teach me. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. So, how are you? I hope you're good. I really do. And if you're not, I hope your day turns around. I mean that sincerely. As for me, well, I had a really good weekend, saw friends, drank wine, soaked in the spa. What could be bad? And I'm working on something I'm actually really proud of and excited about. I'll tell you more about that a little later on in the episode. So let's get ready to jump in. But first, I want to start with the quick, in case you missed it, from my episode on crossroads, because today is sort of a follow-up to that. If you didn't catch it, it was episode 115. I talked about this feeling of being at a crossroads. So not in a big dramatic way, but more like life is good, everything is functioning. What the heck is going on? Something feels a little unclear, a little unsettled, like it's quietly shifting. And what I realized is sometimes the hardest crossroads aren't loud. They're quiet. They're the ones where nothing is forcing you to decide, but something inside of you knows. Eventually, you'll figure it out. Eventually, you will decide. And that's the tricky part, right? When something is clearly wrong, you fix it. When something is clearly right, you move toward it. But when you're in that in-between space, there's no urgency. It can even lead to complacency or inaction. And just this low-level awareness that something isn't quite fully settled. And I think what I was calling uncertainty was really just unmade decisions. And I'm doing it now. I'm going to exhale because there's an exhale that comes with making these decisions, and it's never reached. You never reach that moment through procrastination, which, by the way, is another theme that we'll be examining and experiencing and kind of talking through in a future episode, because I just find procrastination fascinating. And I think it is one of those things that we all have in our life to some degree or another, whether we are procrastinators or whether we are affected by those in our life who procrastinate. But that's fodder for a future episode. The question that kept coming up over and over: am I underinformed? Is that why I feel like I'm at a crossroads? Or am I just avoiding something that I already know? Because again, those are two very different things. One is practical and one is honest. And this is where things started to really change for me. Because instead of just sitting in that question, I actually started moving a little bit. Nothing dramatic, no marathon sessions, just small steps. And here's the thing, guys. I think part of why I stayed there longer than I needed to was because I was telling myself things that sounded really reasonable. Things like, I just need a little more time. I just need more information. I'm not ready to make a decision yet. And those aren't bad things on the surface. But if I'm being honest, some of that wasn't patience. I think it was avoidance. And there's a version of that I think a lot of us do, where we stay in motion, but it's not really movement. We're thinking about it, we're talking about it, we're rerunning it in our heads, but we're actually not doing anything that would change the situation. And even though it feels productive, you guys, it's not. It's just delaying the moment where you actually have to face something. And I think that's where I was. Not stuck, just sitting in what felt like movement, but wasn't actually moving me forward. Does that make sense? And what surprised me is every little step I made led to some momentum that gave me the excitement or the knowledge or the information that I needed to move on to the next step, and so on and so forth. And those small steps led to some pretty immediate clarity. And honestly, when I got that clarity, what followed was a sense of relief, the ability to simply exhale. And I kind of alluded to this a little bit at the end of episode 115, but let's get into it just a little bit deeper. Some of the things that had me at a crossroads were very easily identified, right? One of them I remember was the finances. It had been years since I had taken a look at the finances. Well, I'm happy to report that I did sit down and actually look at our budget. Not in a casual, oh, I think we're kind of fine way, no, or not like that, but in a real, let's take a look at the numbers. I pulled out bank statements, credit card statements, put them all in front of me. And even though I'm still in the middle of it and I haven't completed the exercise, what I realized was I already know enough that I feel a little bit better. And now I can actually start using the information, even though I still have information coming in, to be more intentional, to streamline some things, to get rid of the fluff in the budget and stop wasting money on things that really don't matter or that I really don't use or that I maybe even forgot about. I've done this once before and it yielded great returns, but it's so funny how if you are not paying attention, little tiny expenses, $10 here, $19.95 there, they just sneak up on you and they become part of your budget and you don't even realize it. And what I think I realized for me, what the bigger realization was that nothing is wrong, but I've been a little more disconnected from things than I realized. I've been a little bit too busy having fun, and I need to be a little bit more intentional about setting aside not a ton of time, but just a little chunk of time to keep myself caught up and to keep my budget up to date so that I know where things stand. And the same thing is happening in other areas too. I took a couple of steps and I got a lot of information. I mentioned that we had been going back and forth about the possibility of buying another house because we wanted to go into a single level home. And I also was very open and honest about the fact that it was really pretty much my fault that none of the movement had gotten advanced, right? I had just been thinking about it, but nothing ever really got done. And once I started thinking more seriously about it, I realized that it wasn't as complicated as I was making it. And then out of the clear blue sky, one phone call changed the entire narrative of the whole idea. And it also changed the sense of urgency and the time constraints that I had built into my mind around this decision. And we're not deciding yet, but we know so much more with just that one phone call, and it brings a big, huge sense of peace. Honestly, for me, peace, calm, clarity, those are priceless commodities in my world these days. So for me, that's huge. And even the podcast, it used to be so simple. I got on, I recorded, I got off, I went on about my life. But as time goes by and as the podcast grows, and thank you so much, my listeners, because I couldn't grow without you, I realize that there's a lot more to do. There's networking that needs to be done. There is content creation for social media to market the podcast. There's the idea of the fact that we've been blessed enough to start getting sponsors to reach out to us and guests that want to come on the podcast. And all of that comes with responsibility because it matters how living on the verge is represented. And those are all things that I could just be sitting at a big old fat crossroads and do nothing with, or I could just start to ask myself the questions that progress the narrative. And when I started to do that, what was really interesting is I felt different. And it wasn't because I automatically had all the answers. I still haven't even finished the budget exercise. And, this podcast is ongoing. So we don't know. And I said, we have more information, but we still haven't made a decision on the house. So it's not because I have all the answers, but because I wasn't avoiding the questions anymore. And I think that was the big shift. Clarity didn't come first. Movement did. I had to get out of the middle of the crossroads and zig or zag. And then clarity started to follow. So when I really think of this, I realize I don't think I was ever stuck, really. I think I was just sitting in a moment where life handed me a bunch of moving parts. I got overwhelmed. I froze. And I think I was just waiting for clarity to make me feel ready. And now I'm starting to see that's not how it works. I actually need to take the steps. So the movement needs to come before the clarity. And once you get the clarity, then you get the beautiful feeling of, I get to exhale. That one's behind me. I had a conversation today with a friend and we were chatting about all sorts of different things. But one of my big takeaways was, life ends up being just a series of what you live every day. And as obvious as that sounds, if you really think about it, sometimes we spend so much time seeking these monumental moments or these, moments in time that we think are going to shift the trajectory of our life or whatever. And in fact, the reality is that when you look at your life and the sum of all its parts, it is indeed just the result of all your lived days. So for me, the reminder was, well, live in your day and also make movement, make an effort every day, no matter how minimal you think it might be, to have some sort of movement in your life. And that will propel you to the next obvious step. And so if you're in that space where life is good, but maybe something feels a little unresolved, or you have something you might not really know how you want to handle, maybe the question isn't, what am I supposed to do with my whole entire life? No, maybe it's just, what's the next honest step that I have been avoiding? And then suddenly your crossroads can simply become a bridge to the next chapter of life that you're intended to be living. And honestly, you guys, this is such a perfect lead into something I've been working on behind the scenes. It's a big deal to me. It actually really means a lot. I originally had this idea last year and time got away from me, so I didn't get to actually make it happen. And then, summer and travel and all of that. And then here we are, back again, that time of year. But this year, I got it done. And so I'm excited to announce that I'm kicking off a Women in Business series where I'm going to be sitting down with women who are building things and growing things and navigating real life at the same time and doing it in a way that's honest, not always perfect. And what I'm really excited about and what I love about this series is that it's not just one kind of story. These are strong, bright women in different seasons of life, different decades. Some are moms, some are not, Mother's Day and all. But they have one thing in common. They are dynamic women in business. And we're actually going to move through it in a way that you'll hear from women in different stages, different ages, all the way through to our final episode, which I'm really excited about. And the more I've thought about it, the more I realize how connected it is to this exact space. Because every one of these women, they're making decisions before things feel clear, sometimes on the fly. They're moving before it's comfortable. They're stepping out into areas that other people have been afraid to step into. And they're figuring it out as they go. So, if you want to hear from some really dynamic, thoughtful, just genuinely fabulous women, this upcoming series is for you. It's going to run all through the month of May, and I'm so truly excited for you to hear it. So we're going to be having a fantastic time with all of the things that I have in mind and in store for you guys over the next few months. We have a bunch of fantastic guests. We have our Women in Business series kicking off on Friday. I'm so excited for it. And I'm really happy that you guys took some time just to spend with me today. That's it. That's what I've got for you today. And until next time, I'll be right here, living on the verge.